Favorite. All right, almost. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about the law of attraction and why I don't personally think that it is a good teaching, why I don't teach it, especially not the way that it's generally taught, and what I think we can do instead that can be a little healthier, what we can take from the law of attraction that might actually be reality and use that to our advantage, and how we can get rid of all the stuff that is garbage and also acknowledge the parts of it that are actually very harmful to individuals and harmful to communities, so that we can again protect ourselves from the parts of it that are really bad and the parts of it that lead to suffering and that lead to us harming ourselves and harming others, because again, this teaching can be really toxic, and it can actually be something that really holds people back from being able to take the power in their life that they actually do have. It stops them from being able to take the steps in their life that they actually could take. It leads people to being really afraid of their thoughts and afraid of their emotions, which generally speaking isn't a very good thing. And it can lead to a lot of blaming of people for their circumstances that are absolutely not their fault. And it can lead to people not being helped and not being supported in the ways that they need to be helped and supported, because they're being blamed and they're being gaslit for the fact that they are the cause of their problems. And so, again, this idea is something that just really needs to be looked at and really needs to be dissected, because it's one that is really toxic and has a lot of really problematic elements to it. And yeah, okay, so basically I want to start by saying that, I've been making YouTube videos, making content. I've got a mystery school, I've got coaching, I'm doing all this stuff since like 2014. So I've been around for a while. I've been doing this for the better part of the last almost 10 years. And in that time, especially during the beginning, the first kind of 3 or 4 years of doing this, the law of attraction was like the big thing in the spirituality, self-help, personal growth movement. And it was pretty much all anyone was talking about. And it was like, if you didn't believe in the law of attraction, and if you weren't doing the whole like secret thing, if you weren't trying to manifest everything that you wanted by visualizing it and making vision boards, and if you weren't like a believer of this law of attraction thing, you were just like, people just thought that you didn't get it. Like, people really just were like, oh, you're not like on it, whatever. And of course, right, Abraham Hicks was super huge, and Teal Swan was really big into it. So like, if you were into spirituality, if you were into personal growth, if you were into any of this stuff, chances are you were into the law of attraction. And the main thing that I kept seeing, that I kept saying, okay, this doesn't make sense. Okay, the first big problem that kept happening, and this is again like very small fries now compared to what I have seen, the damage that this teaching has done over the last 10 years and long term, but still this was a pretty big deal, is people kept coming to me being like, I am now like horrified of my thoughts. Like, I am now in a space where I am so afraid that I'm gonna die, or that my family's gonna die, or that I'm gonna get a horrible disease or whatever, because I can't stop thinking about it. Like, basically ever since I learned about the law of attraction and the idea that my thoughts create my reality, I have just been unable to stop thinking about getting cancer, or having my plane go down, or some horrible thing happening to me or my family, and now I'm just so afraid that I'm gonna attract that and I'm gonna manifest that. And I just kept trying to convince people that, like, okay, this doesn't make sense. This entire teaching doesn't make sense, because if our lives were all just about what we thought, wouldn't all of us just have died in a plane crash already? Wouldn't all of us be a millionaire? Wouldn't all of us have attracted love into our lives? Because if we're being honest, like most human beings kind of like obsessively think about these things all the time. And if, again, if it were really just a matter of focusing on what we wanted, most people's lives would be very different from how they are. Like, how many times have you, for an extended period of time, obsessively thought about something, or thought about something a lot, and wanted something a lot, and dreamed about something a lot, and it never happened? So that's the first thing. I think everyone can come up with multiple ways in which they had repetitive thoughts and repetitive desires that didn't come true, whether you knew about the law of attraction or not, right? And at the same time, I think all of us can very easily say that we have had experiences in our lives that we never thought about even once, that we never even knew was a thing, that it happened to us and it was totally random and totally out of the blue, and we didn't think about it. And again, right, it's just, if we were to take this law seriously, if we were to say, okay, the law of attraction is actually true, we should be able to test it, and it should work every single time. We should be able to say, okay, you just need to focus on having $1 million, and we're going to take 10 test subjects, and all 10 of them are going to just focus on their $10 million, and all of them should, at some point, near to where they are, like in a reasonable time frame, come into $10 million. And the fact that that is not reality, like, we cannot test it like that. As in, we can test it and we will not get those results. We know that this is not a law. We can say that with absolute certainty, because if it was a law, it would work every time. If the law of attraction was a law, it would work every time, right? Like, gravity is a law. And we say that because every single time you drop something, it will hit the ground. Every single time, every morning you wake up, you are not floating. It is a law. Okay? When something is not a law, it does not work every time. It does not work the same way every time. There's no standard to it. There's no predictability. And the law of attraction very firmly fits into that category. And if we are being honest with ourselves, we can say the scientific method, you might not believe in scientists. You might not believe that the scientific community is legit, and that's fine. You don't have to believe in that. But the scientific method of testing a hypothesis and seeing that you get the same result every single time you test it is how we determine what reality is. Okay? The scientific method works. And when we test the law of attraction, it does not work every single time. There is not consistency. So therefore, we cannot say that it is a law. We cannot say that it absolutely is true, because it isn't absolutely true. Okay? So that's the first thing. Now, if that was all it is, if it was just making people afraid of their thoughts a little bit sometimes, and all we had to do was say, okay, well, can you look at reality a little bit and see that not everything that you've ever thought about has come into your life? And can you see that lots of things have come into your life that you haven't thought about or that you didn't manifest? And can you see that, again, that there's no consistency to this? It would be pretty okay and pretty easy, and we could just say, okay, well, it's a little bit of a misunderstanding and people are just being silly, and that's fine. We can write it off. But this is not the reality, right? That this is not what people have turned the law of attraction into. And the very, very, very dark side of the law of attraction, I think, the teachings need to be talked about. Okay, so the first big, huge red flag in the law of attraction teaching, other than the fact that it is clearly not a law, because it cannot be scientifically tested. And again, anything that is true in reality, we can test it against reality. We can test it. And if you really believe in something, If you really believe that something is true, you should want it to be tested. You should want it to be able to be held up to scrutiny and to prove itself to be true, right? If you say, well, that's wrong and the scientific method is stupid and you're just not doing it right, that is actually showing the holes in the argument. Because again, if something is true, we should be able to say, okay, this is how it works. This is what you do. This is the protocol. And it works every time like this. It works every time like this. And if it doesn't work every time like this, we have to be willing to say, okay, our understanding of it is clearly incorrect. It's not what we want it to be. Okay? So then this next part is the law of attraction teaching very much tells people that, again, their entire life is happening because of them. The law of attraction teaching, the root of it, is that your life is 100% occurring because of yourself. That you are the center for your reality. That everything that is happening around you is because of your thoughts or your emotions or your vibration, depending on, whose law of attraction teaching you're listening to. And that means that if you can just control that part of yourself, your thoughts, your emotions, your vibration, that you will then be able to control anything that happens to you. Yes? We can see that at the root, this is what the teaching is trying to tell us. That your reality is 100% within your control via just controlling your mind or your behavior or your energetics, something on the inside. Why would that teaching be incredibly attractive? Why would we want to believe that our entire life is because of us and it's because of some internal situation? I think we know why we would want. It's incredibly ableist. That's, again, we're going to get to it. Why would we want to believe that? Of course, right? We want to believe that there is a way to be completely in control of our reality. And we want to believe that the way we control it is through controlling our own inner self. Because, again, let's be really honest about this, that is how we were trained reality worked in our childhoods. When we were infants, when we were small children, we perceived that our caregivers were God. Yes, they had access to everything. They were able to make everything happen. From our perception, they were the arbiters of reality. And the one thing we had control over was our behavior, which we perceived either made our caregivers care for us or not. That's how we learned that reality worked. That was our perception of how life unfolds. I am in control of my behavior or my emotions or my inner game, and through doing that, my caregivers respond to me by either giving me the things that I want, taking away the things that are hurting me, or not. Because they are in control of everything. They have the access to everything. They can make anything happen if they want to, and the only reason they do or don't is because of my behavior. That's what we learned in our bodies, was how reality functioned. Before we had cognitive logic understanding, that was our perception of life. So now let's layer that on top of the idea of the law of attraction. The universe is capable of giving you anything you want, taking away anything you don't want, so long as you behave in a way that pleases the universe. So long as your vibration or your emotions or your thoughts match how you perceive the universe wants you to be on your inner game. And that is how you get what you want or get rid of what you don't want. Does that not sound exactly like how we perceived reality to be in our childhoods? We just replaced energy, we just replaced my behavior, my energy, whatever, with vibes and emotions, and we replaced caregivers with universe or God or whatever it is. That's where that belief really comes from. Okay, and remember that this law of attraction teaching is really, 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 really old. This is not new. It did not start with The Secret. Okay, it started with the New Thought movement back in the 1800s. People were talking about the idea that we could create whatever we wanted via our thoughts way before we had science and understanding and all of these things. Okay? This is an old teaching that's been passed on and passed on and passed on and passed on. Now, so again, of course we're going to be attracted to a teaching that feels exactly like what we think reality is in our childhoods. It's going to feel completely familiar and safe and comfortable to our nervous systems. It's going to make us feel like we have total control over our lives. It's going to make us feel like we can transcend and get rid of all the chaos in life if we just control ourselves perfectly. You can see why people would really want to believe this, right? You can see why people would be so deeply attracted to this idea. Yeah? Okay. From there, we have to understand that especially in the Western world, we are raised in a way where we are indoctrinated into a cult of individualism. Our culture is all about you, the individual, making your individual choices, fighting for yourself. Every person has the right to pursue life and liberation, and your life is because of you. Our culture teaches us that people who are poor because they are choosing to be poor. That people who are criminals because they are just making bad choices and choosing to be criminals. People who are sick because they are making bad health choices. People who are mentally ill because they are making bad choices. People who are addicted because they're making bad choices. We are indoctrinated. Okay, and then everyone who's rich, everyone who's successful, everyone who's beautiful, everyone who's healthy, we look at them and we say, they have that because they made good individual choices. They were strong, they were smart, they were more whatever than everyone else. And that's how they got there. Those individuals make good choices, those individuals made bad choices, and that is why life is how it is. And again, we're indoctrinated into the idea that we all have the same equal choice. That every single person on this planet has the capacity to make good choices, and that those good choices should lead to these awesome results. That everyone has access to the same good choices, everyone has access to the same bad choices, and that those choices are going to give you the same results as everyone else who makes those choices. That is the cult we are indoctrinated into. And that is a lie. Society and the world and life absolutely does not work like that. This is not true. This is not reality. In real reality, there are certain people, for instance, you're born with a chronic illness. You can make all of the best health choices ever and still not be able to cure your disease and become as able-bodied as everybody else because you have a chronic illness that cannot be cured. It is not because of a choice you made that you're sick, and it doesn't matter the choices that you make. You are not going to get the same health results as someone who is able-bodied is when they make those same health choices. Okay? You grow up in an affluent neighborhood. The access to education that you're going to have, the access to healthcare, the access to care in general, not feeling like you're afraid of, you don't know where your next meal is coming from, you don't know if you're going to have a roof over your head, you don't know if you're going to be safe or not. You have all that taken care of. You have a secure attachment to your parents or your caregivers. You have supportive environment. You can study. You have the capacity to maybe do extracurricular activities, and then you have the money to go to university. You are being set up to have success in life, where now the choices that you're going to make it as an adult, the choices you're going to make to study in university, the choices you're going to make to what job you're going to have and what partner you're going to have and where you're going to live, you have been given the platform to be able to make really great choices for yourself. That someone who grew up in a less affluent neighborhood, that had a lot of crime, that had a lot of broken homes, and just the idea that they didn't have supportive caregivers, or caregivers who were working 2 jobs or 3 jobs and they just weren't there for you, where you didn't have the money to go to university, you didn't have the money to get the job that you would want to get, you don't have the look that people want you to have. You can make awesome choices. You can do the best thing for yourself that you possibly can. And you're still not going to, generally speaking, be able to get the same results as someone who had this other totally different platform, totally different foundation. We know that even the idea that the law doesn't function equally, that people, depending on what you look like, depending on where you are from, depending on whatever, will be punished more harshly for the same crime as other people. We know that, again, right? It's just your individual choices are not the one thing that are determining your reality. We cannot say that. Because, again, what if you're born with a chronic illness? What if you're born into a community where you don't have access? What if you're born into a situation where you're incredibly wealthy and you have a lot of access? What if you're born with a talent that current society really values? What if you're born with a talent that current society doesn't care about? All of these things are then going to determine the outcomes of your choices. So are we saying that we don't have any power or control in life? Of course not. We all have choices. We all are able to make choices and to do good for ourselves. And, okay, one more thing I want to say. And then again, the other thing that is so deeply misunderstood and simplified and not talked about, especially in the law of attraction, is our conditioning, is our trauma, is the ways in which our individual minds work and how we were conditioned to see ourselves and to see the world. How we were conditioned to perceive what we perceive and to do what we do. And the patterns we were handed in terms of like our emotional patterns, our love patterns, our eating habits, the way that we treat our bodies, the way that we treat each other, the things that we value and the things that we don't value, so much of that was programmed into us in our early childhoods. And for most of us, unless we do some really serious like self-introspective work, and unless we have the tools to help us change these things, we are just going to live the rest of our lives following that. We are going to, right, like the statistics are, most people are going to live a stone's throw away from where they were born. Most people are going to live a life that is very similar to the lives their parents lived, to the lives their caregivers lived, to the lives that everyone around them that they were born into lived. Because number one, right, that's what we know. A lot of us don't even know that there's some other option available. Number two, a lot of the time we don't have the option to do something else. We don't have the option to leave. We don't have the option to change the way that we live, because that would be socially ostracizing. In some places that would be very dangerous for us. In some situations, like I say, we have no role model, we have no access to anything that could be different. And then psychologically and fundamentally and physically, changing these things is really hard and really scary, and our nervous systems will fight it at every step because we have that fundamental foundational program that if I'm not loved and accepted, I won't be understood and I won't be given what I need, and then I will die and I will be in pain. So the law of attraction is not even taking into account that the way you perceive reality, the way you perceive yourself, the things you value and the things you don't value, the way your life is currently set up is all a perception. And it's a pattern that was handed to you that is now familiar in your nervous system. And changing that is really, really challenging. Even seeing it. Like seeing that the things that you value and the things that you prioritize and the way that you think life has to be isn't how it has to be, isn't universally acceptable truth, right? Like if you were born into a religion, it's very, very difficult to see that there are billions of people out there who do not believe at all what you believe, who do not think that there's value to the things that you have value. It is very difficult to understand that like what you think is beautiful, what you think is attractive is not universally true. That there are people out there who will think what you think is beautiful is totally ugly. And these are just like small examples, but the idea that we tend to think that how we view the world is how we all view the world. We tend to think that what we value and what we think is important and what we think truth is universal, when in fact it is generally not at all. And so again, even just our perception of what reality is and how it works and what is truth and what isn't, it's not objective, and it's not something that we chose, and it paints everything. Yes? So then if we try and say, okay, now your life is all just your choices and your life is just what you think it is. It's like, well, okay, but at what point did you start choosing how you perceive the world? At what point did you choose how you perceive yourself? At what point did you choose how you perceive what is and isn't valuable and what wasn't true? Because you didn't. That was programmed into you. Yeah? And then again, for most of us, we're not going to make a choice. We're not going to change that. Because that was just what we were handed, and we see that as being reality, and there's no reason to question it. There's no reason to dismantle our foundations. And the people who do dismantle their foundations go through these really intense dark nights of the soul where you lose your touch with what you think reality is, and it's very difficult and it's very hard and it's very scary, and most people will never do it. Yeah? So then we just say, yeah, your life is just your choice, or your life is just what you're thinking. And it's like, okay, but are you even choosing your thoughts? Like, if we really think about it, are you in control of your thoughts? Are you in control of your emotions? Are you in control of your feeling and your vibration? Or is so much of that happening because of what happened to you and your conditioning and your programming and your history and your experiences and everything that you were taught? At what point did you choose? Okay? So we have to, again, understand that this simplistic teaching of your thoughts are controlling your reality, you are in control of your thoughts, therefore you can be in control of your reality. It's like so deeply not understanding how humans work and how reality works. And then again, it postures that reality is individual and human-centric. So then it starts to get into this idea that everything that's happening to you is because of you, solely because of you, as though all of us are living in our own little individual bubbles. And so then people start coming to me and saying, like, why do I keep attracting these people into my life? Why do I keep attracting these circumstances into my life? Why does this certain thing keep happening to me over and over and over again? Why am I attracting this? And I always say, okay, number one, it's not just because you're thinking about it all the time. You're probably not sitting there thinking about shitty people who are going to abuse you 24/7. You're probably not sitting there like visualizing with your vision board people coming up to you and judging you and being mean to you, right? If you got mugged at an ATM, were you thinking about that? Were you ruminating on that idea? Were you visualizing it? Probably not. Okay, so then people are like, well, then what is it inside of my vibration that made it so that I was a match to that? And my answer is usually, we live in a world where most people, right? So let's go to the like, why am I attracting these kind of miserable people into my life? For most of us, the reality is we are attracting it because we live in a world where most people are pretty emotionally immature. We live under a patriarchy which does not value, by any stretch of the imagination, emotional maturity. And in fact, it pretty much teaches us to be incredibly emotionally immature. Our society teaches us to be in constant competition with one another. It teaches us to be in a constant state of manufactured discontent, always feeling like I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not secure, I'm not going to be okay because I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not successful enough, I'm not rich enough, I'm not all these things. So now we're in a constant state of fear. We're trained to be dissociated from our bodies. We're trained to be completely in our heads and not in our feelings in any way. We're trained to be poor at communication. How many of us learned good communication skills? Learned how to identify what we're feeling, identify what we're wanting, identify what we perceive is going on with somebody else, being able to communicate that in a non-combative way. Almost none of us. How many of us learned how to have empathy and respect and kindness for others? Or did we learn you're just dog eat dog, fight for yourself, do what you need to do, perceive everyone as either helping you or hindering you, and that's the point. So the reason you're experiencing being in contact with a whole bunch of people who treat you shitty is because most people, that's how they behave. That's why. It's because you exist in a society where most people are like that. You are not attracting it. You are just the law of odds, right? The fact that most people are like that means that if you go out and you're in the world, most of the people that you interact with are going to be like that. That's why. It has nothing to do with you. You're not attracting it or not attracting it. It's because society is the way that society is. It's because they are the way that they are. Right? And again, there is truth to the idea that we can have a love map. That if we were raised in a household where love was chaotic, where love was conditional, where we learned that we weren't, unconditionally loved, that we weren't safe, and all the kind of unhealthy relationship habits that we develop in our childhoods, that will be programmed into our bodies as what love is. That will be programmed into our bodies as familiarity. So the patterns of codependency, the patterns of letting someone walk all over you, the pattern of loving people who are emotionally unavailable and who are never going to love you the way that you love them. That is not a choice you're making. That is a pattern that's in your body that you learned in your childhood or in your early adolescence based on how you were treated. This is how you were taught love is, and this is what you were taught you had to do in relationships in order to get your needs met. Because again, most of us never evolved into adulthood where we say, okay, no, my needs and getting my needs met is now not about doing certain behaviors so that people will approve of me and then meet my needs based on empathing me and liking me. That's the temporary codependent relationship we have with our caregivers. So again, number one, why are we also codependent? Because that's how we were taught love was in the very beginning of our lives. We were codependent with our caregivers. We could not meet our own needs. We could not understand our own needs. We could not communicate our own needs. We just had to make noises and be what our caregivers wanted us to be in order that they would meet our needs and love us. And they were teaching us how to be, and we had no way of questioning that, no way of seeing that there was other ways to be. That was being imprinted to us as, again, this is how reality is. This is how everyone is. This is what relationships are. This is how you behave. That was imprinted into our bodies, not just our logical minds, our physical nervous systems. So then as we grow, we never learn to say, okay, whoa, there are like so many other different ways of life. There are so many other ways that we can be, that this is not the only way to get my needs met, that approval isn't the one way to get my needs met. That now as an adult, I can figure out what I want, and I can figure out what I need, and I can get it for myself. That's all in your nervous system. So then we are going to be attracted to people who are similar to the patterns of relationship that we had in our childhoods, because that's how we know how to behave. That's going to feel like safety to us. So we are not choosing it. It is what our bodies want us to do. It's familiarity, because our nervous systems are always going to say same equals safe. So even if what we are choosing is harmful, is codependent, is abusive, is shitty, our bodies are still going to read that that is what is right, that is what is safe, that is what we should do. And unless and until we are able to do the emotional work of unpacking that and then making different choices and knowing that those different choices, even if they're healthier, are going to feel shitty at first. They're going to feel unsafe. They're going to feel really, really wrong and bad. Because to our nervous system, different equals threat. Yes? So you see, actually changing our choices, actually changing the ways that we were programmed to be so that we are attracted to different people is a huge emotional undertaking. And it requires a lot of self-awareness and a lot of self-support and a lot of compassion and a lot of doing things that are very uncomfortable, that are not going to feel good. And you have to be aware of all of that. So you see what I'm saying? You're not just attracting what's in your life because you're thinking about it. The financial situation that you're in. Again, what are your foundations? What were you given in terms of support and guidance and help? What talents do you have that society either values or doesn't value? What is your mental capacity? What is your physical capacity? What help were you given? What hindrances were you given? All of these things have such a massive impact on where you are right now. What were you taught about money? What were you taught about work? What were you taught about yourself and what you're capable of? What do you believe about yourself and about money? Where were your traumas with not having enough, or your assumption that everything's going to be fine because it always was? You see what I'm saying? You were handed so much of your foundation, and then society is set up in such a way that the conditions you were in have a massive impact on where you are now in your adulthood. And then to make different choices than your caregivers made, to make different choices than everyone around you when you were growing up have made, to make different choices than everyone around you now as an adult is really, really challenging and difficult. If you have an overspending habit, it's not just because you're irresponsible with money, because you're choosing to be irresponsible with money. There's going to be a whole bunch of reasons why you do that. Why that feels like safety to your nervous system. Why saving money is going to feel like a threat. This is why you have what you have in your life. So, to have compassion for ourselves, that where we are in life is not simply because of our choices. That so much has occurred that have manipulated how we make our choices, what we perceive to be a good thing to do and not a good thing to do, is so important to understand. Your reality is not just because of you and your thoughts and what's happening in between your ears. You are being affected by everyone around you and everything around you. When we spiritual people say we are all connected, this is what we mean. It's not that we have to believe we're all love and light and everyone's brothers and sisters. It's that we have to understand that we live as a collective, that what everyone around us is doing is affecting us. What we're doing is affecting everyone around us. That there is a ripple effect at all times. We're not just living in our individual bubbles. That nature and how reality functions outside of humans is affecting us. Weather, where we were born on the planet, what resources are available, how the government works, what the dominant religion is, all of these things have a massive impact on your life and your choices. Okay? It takes living in a world, in a culture where you're so unaware of how you're being affected by the greater picture that we could even believe in this law of attraction teaching. Right? Okay. And then finally, again, we often use this teaching as a way of unburdening ourselves from the existential realities of being alive. I think the real reason we cling to the idea that the law of attraction is real and that it's all just based on our thoughts and our feelings is because, number one, we want to believe that we can avoid all suffering and heal all suffering if we just fix ourselves enough. I get it. Life is scary. Life is challenging. There are so many things that we all know somewhere deep inside we don't have control over. And we are afraid of that for good reason. Because to be a human is to be incredibly vulnerable. We are very, 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 very vulnerable people. And there are beings. There are so many things in society, in regular reality, like if we were just existing in nature, you exist in society, threat is everywhere. And we want to believe that there's something we can do to mitigate that threat. And for a lot of us, we go into magical thinking. Because magical thinking feels better than accepting that there are a lot of things we don't have control over in this life, that we can suffer and we can be in pain and not know why and not be able to make it stop. And because a lot of us, again, were never taught to truly problem solve. We don't have good self-esteem, a lot of us. We don't have good internal, a good internal sense of I can figure it out. We also don't feel like we're going to be supported by our communities. We don't feel like if something goes wrong, we have people around us who can help us. Because again, we're indoctrinated into this culture of individualism. So many people don't have that kind of love and that kind of support and that kind of people around them to help them out if shit hits the fan. It is hard to embrace the vulnerability of being human. And so we are trying to tell ourselves that we can transcend it, that we can get rid of it if we just fix ourselves enough. Which again goes back to that childhood programming that everything is because of me, and if I just fix myself enough, caregivers will give me everything that I want and take away all of the pain. Okay? And the second thing is it helps us to alleviate the pain of looking at other people who are suffering. Other people who are suffering. And it helps us to overcome those feelings of empathy and really actually being sad for other people. Because we get to say, well, what are they doing? It was their fault. They chose it. And I believe, again, the reason we want to do that, the main reason we want to do that is because we want to believe that there's some separation between ourselves and people who are experiencing horrible things. We want to believe that there's a reason that they are experiencing that we can say to ourselves, and that is why I will not experience it because I am different in this way. We just want to believe that people are making bad choices, or they have bad thoughts, or they have bad vibrations, or they attracted it, so that we can tell ourselves, that won't happen to me. I'm not going to have to experience that. I'm going to be safe because that was their problem and it's not my problem. It helps us, again, to break ourselves from empathy, from feeling heartbroken for other people. Because, again, there are so many extreme tragedies that are a part of being alive. There are people who are born into war-torn, poverty-stricken realities, and their lives are just trauma after trauma after trauma. People who are born into sick bodies. People who are born and then some horrible tragedy happens to them, some fluke accident. And we just want to say, there has to be a reason for that. There has to be a good reason for that's part of it. We want to believe that there's order to the universe. We want to believe that there's goodness in every horrible thing that happens. Because to embrace the idea of just tragedy is incredibly challenging. It's hard. It's hard to think that sometimes horrible things just happen. It's hard to think horrible things could happen to us too. We don't have perfect control. We can do all the best things and make all the best choices, and someone can come and mug us at the ATM. We can contract a disease and then it totally ruins our body. It's possible. We're not in control. It's an existential threat. It's a calculated risk to be alive. We want to believe that there's separation between us and people who are struggling, us and people who are addicted or criminals or having some horrible life experience. We want to be able to separate ourselves so that we don't have to have empathy. We don't have to look at systems. We don't have to look at why that's actually happening to them. We want to just believe, well, they made bad choices. I'm going to make good choices. I'm a good person. They're a bad person. Separation. Instead of, okay, well, maybe if I was in their shoes, maybe if I had experienced all the things they had experienced, maybe if I had been in the situation they were in, I might be exactly where they are. Maybe the systems aren't fair. Maybe the way society is set up isn't fair. Maybe there's something we can and should be doing as human beings to shift things so that people don't end up in situations like that so easily. What if the law of attraction, in so many ways, is covering up the ways in which society needs to change to make it safer and better and more equitable for all of us? I believe in a lot of ways the law of attraction teaching is used as a weapon to maintain our systems of inequality and things not being fair and victim blaming, where certain people and certain groups of people are privileged above others. And we're all just told, no, they're not. They're not privileged. They just made better choices. They're just better people. They deserve to have all these good things because they are good people versus these bad people. But when we look under the rug, this isn't true, right? The successful people in our world didn't vision board. The people who are rich in our countries aren't rich because they were like manifesting. And they usually are not rich because they're good people and the universe is rewarding them with abundance because they had really good vibrations. People who get rich in our culture exploit, and they are privileged, and they are given head and shoulders, head starts against everyone else. That's why they're there. The laws are not the same for them. Consequences are not the same for them. The outcomes of their choices are not the same for them. They're supported by multiple people. The community invested in them. That's why they are where they are. So again, if the law of attraction were true, if it was really about who's a good person, we would not have any of the systems that we have. Nothing would be functioning how it is. You see what I'm saying? We want to believe this because it makes us feel like we have perfect control. And it makes us feel like we can blame people for their pain. And then we can separate ourselves and say, that won't happen to me. I'm going to be a good person. I'm going to make good choices. And the universe is going to reward me with all of these things. But that's not how reality works. It's hard to accept. But that is not what is happening. That is not what reality is. That is not the societies we live in. So what do we do? What do we do with this? Is there any benefit to the law of attraction? Okay. There's absolutely something to be said for focusing on something and taking action towards it. When we have a goal and something we want to achieve and something we want to become, there's absolute power in focusing on it to a degree. And then allowing that focus to help us figure out where our steps are. Because no, the reality is you don't just magically manifest things. Okay? Sometimes things will happen to you that you didn't make happen, and that's part of being alive. And whatever you want to believe about why that happens or how that happens, go ahead. There are going to be things that all of us try really hard for. Like take action steps over and over and over again. Put in our best effort. Do everything we can. And it still never happens. It just wasn't a possibility for us. It just isn't a thing. Because of reality, because of culture, because of a mix of these things. And we have to embrace that. There are going to be things that happen to us that are tragic, that we had no control over. There are going to be things that happen to us that are amazing, that we had no control over. There are going to be things that happen in our lives because we made really good choices, and that's how we got there. And then we have to be grateful for the fact that we were able to make those choices, that we had the mental capacity to make those choices, that we had the situation to make those choices. Real reality comes down to constantly weighing what we have control over and what we don't, and doing the best we can to control what we can control, to make the choices we can make, to help ourselves make healthy choices, to help ourselves come out of our conditioned perception if it's not working for us. Yeah? And then everything else is learning how to embrace those things that we don't have control over, to process our emotions of that, to process our process of that. Next thing, if the law of attraction is making it so that you don't have compassion for other people, it's time to question it. Because again, I get it. We want to separate ourselves from the pain. We want to believe it's not going to happen to me because I'm not like them. We want to believe those are bad people and I'm a good person. We want to believe there's a reason for it. There's we can explain it. There's goodness even in the tragedy. And whatever you need to tell yourself about tragedy, okay. But don't let it be the reason that you don't take action steps in your life to make it so that tragedy that we can control is less. Because culture and society is a part of the reason why people experience what they experience. Okay? Some of things that we experience are not because of culture and society. It's just reality. Some of the things that we experience are because of culture and society, and we can change those things. And the law of attraction that just says don't be in victim mentality and elevate your thoughts and just be a better person is not helpful. It is victim blaming because there are victims. That is a real reality. And again, I know we don't like to think that, but it is true. Power structures exist, and they are always going to exist. So it is up to us as human beings to have empathy and say, okay, this is exploitation. This is unfair system. This is certain groups of people having more privilege than everyone else at the expense of everyone else. And we need to change that. That is why they are in the circumstances they are in. That's why life is so much harder for them than it needs to be. That's why even when they try and make good choices, their good choices don't go as far as other people's good choices. And we need to be honest about that, and we can't let it be a reason we don't step in and help and be productive for others where we can. This is where I think the big problem with the law of attraction is that it makes us feel like we can not take responsibility for the people around us and not take responsibility for the life that we could help support others having. And I don't think that's a good thing. Because again, no. Our reality is not happening between our ears. And then, like I say, finally, reality is not human-centric. We are having an effect on reality, the way things are, and the systems we've created, and a lot of the outcomes are because of us. And then a lot of things aren't. Literally just are not because of humans at all. Reality is not arising between your two ears, nor is it arising because of humans only. Reality is so much bigger and so much more complex than that. And again, these are things we need to accept about how life is, so that we can actually figure out where our power is. We can actually figure out where cause is, cause and effect. And we can put our energy where cause actually is. We can have empathy and compassion for people and for ourselves. And understanding that people are not just choosing to be harmful. People are not just choosing to be harmed. Sometimes people can, and so again, right, we can make better choices. There is that. It's a combination of things. But also people need to be given the opportunity to make better choices. It's not all or nothing. It's not black and white. It's all of these things together. Life is very gray. So, have your vision boards. Think about the things that you want. Take action steps towards them. That's all great. But don't believe that everything that happens in your life is because of you, because it isn't. Don't blame yourself for the fact that everyone around you is an asshole. You were just born around a bunch of assholes. That's not your fault. If you have chronic illness, if you were hurt, if you were mugged, if you were whatever, that's not your fault. Don't blame yourself. That's not helpful. It's not reality. This law cannot be tested and proven every single time, and therefore it is not a law. And it's harming people. It's making it so that we are, again, believing that rich people are just rich because they deserve it. And they manifested it. And then they make podcasts about manifesting it. And it's like, no, you had a rich husband. So you could fail over and over and over again. And that is why. Right? You're conventionally beautiful. So you blew up on Instagram. You didn't manifest it. That's because our society values that. And you made the choice to, go with that. We have to be more realistic. It's a lot less fun and a lot less magical, but it's actually empowering. When we're realistic about why life is the way that it is, and we're realistic about what kind of choices we can make, and what kind of choices are actually going to be good for us, that's when we have power. Everything else might feel really nice in the moment, but it's not actual power if it's not in alignment with real reality. Okay? Don't let this law be a thing that takes you out of empathy. Don't let it be something that makes it so that you victim blame people. It is not a way to escape empathy. And it is not really actually a good way of escaping existential dread for yourself. There are better tools for that. Come join my mystery school. That's all we talk about. Self-love, therapy. There are so many different ways in which that you can get tools to actually help you navigate the human experience that don't involve going into fantasy. Okay? Okay. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's some of the things that are wrong with the law of attraction. Again, have goals, have things that you're believing in, that's fine. But don't let it be a thing that takes you out of reality. Okay? Okay. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. You're amazing. You're awesome. You have some control over your life. Take that. And then use the tools that are out there for helping you deal with the things we don't have control over. Be kind to others. Assume that everyone is doing the best that they can. Help where you can. That is what being a good person is. It's not about being a hero. It's just, where can we be of support? Okay? Okay. See you next week. And until then, mwah. Bye-bye.